Okay, so today is one of the 4 special Buddhist holidays in the year. It's called the Day of Miracles, and the story behind it is that the non-Buddhists had been challenging the Buddha to a display of supernormal powers, and because the Buddha does not consider this something special, in other words, the purpose of the path is not to have supernormal powers, it's to be liberated from samsara and to become enlightened and benefit others. And supernormal powers are a tool that you can use to benefit others. But if you just have them by themselves, if you don't have a good motivation, they can even be damaging. So anyway, these non-Buddhists thought that the supernormal powers were the point of the path. And they kept challenging the Buddha to a display, and he kept saying, no, 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 no. And then finally, you know, they pestered him enough, so he consented. And of course, his supernormal powers outshone the supernormal powers of the non-Buddhists, who then converted and became the Buddhist disciples. It's quite interesting. There's one story in the longer discourses in the Pali Canon where, and I'm not sure if this is the story that has to do with today or not. I didn't have the chance to look it up this morning. But anyway, you know, somebody had been challenging the Buddha to a display of supernormal powers. And so the Buddha said, okay, finally, reluctantly, you know, but he said, okay. And then when the other person was supposed to come to the meeting place, he couldn't get off his seat. And one person after another came to get him, to bring him to the place where he and the Buddha were going to have this display of miraculous powers. And he just couldn't get off the seat to go there. As much as he tried to get up, he was stuck. Okay. I think this was, you know, hinting that that was one of the Buddha's supernormal powers, that he couldn't make that happen to that person. There's also another story in the middle-length discourses of one monk who he ordained with the wrong idea of, you know, thinking supernormal powers were a big deal and the purpose of the path. And he kept on asking the Buddha to enact them, which the Buddha declined. But, you know, in the Buddha's own unique way, he would show his powers. And it was clear, you know, I mean, his talent as a teacher and ability to lead others. And I think this monk was also involved in this story with the non-Buddhist who couldn't get off his seat. But whatever the Buddha did, this monk just didn't see it as enough. And he finally disrobed and then went around town criticizing the Buddha, saying that, you know, what kind of enlightened being is he if he can't even show his supernormal powers? So it was quite interesting, because no matter what the Buddha did, you know, in terms of his own virtue and his own spiritual powers, this monk could never see it. Yeah, and so all he could do was find something to criticize and lose faith in, which was a real tragedy, and he created so much negative karma in this way. But what came out of this was the sutra, I think it's called the Greater Sutra on the Lion's Roar, and in it is where the Buddha talked about his the 4 types of self-confidence of an enlightened being, the 10 powers of an enlightened being, all the different things, qualities that a Buddha had that non-Buddhas, even the Arhats, didn't have. Yeah, and so that sutra came out of this monk's, you know, criticism. But at the end of the sutra, I don't remember this monk kind of coming around and saying, oh, I got it now. You know, it was quite amazing, the obscurations on his own mind that prevented him from seeing the Buddha's qualities. But today is one of those 4 special days. And so in the Buddhist year, the other being Vesak, and the day that the Buddha turned the Dharma wheel, and the day that he descended from the God realm of the 33 after teaching his mother the Dharma for the 3-month rainy seasons. And so it's said to be one of the merit multiplying days, so that any virtuous action we do is multiplied by I don't know how many millions of times. Okay, so good to do virtuous things today. Traditionally in the Tibetan community today, His Holiness gives a teaching on one of the Jataka tales that describes one of the Buddha's previous lives. So I was thinking, if somebody wanted to go to His Holiness's website, I don't know if they've put it up yet, but perhaps they have, and we could all watch the teaching.